everybody.
Hi,
Welcome
guys.
to Shaken and Disturbed. I am Daryn Carp. John, I'm going
I
to give
took a
you a
drink
word,
right at
and
the beginning.
this is John Thrasher. I'm going to give you for those on video, smash that subscribe button, and you can see John doing, ready, John? Do a teapot.
I knew exactly. Wait.
Yep, there you go. But
Okay.
another thing, see,
Yeah,
this is
for
what John
another thing.
did.
Yeah, tell him. In
He did this
NMR.
on our NMR, and I just called him a teapot, and then he really couldn't deny it.
I couldn't. I was telling Darren on the show, I was like, I'm so annoyed that you were so quick to know that that's
Right.
exactly what I just did. So
That's
thank you for
exactly
that.
right.
Listen,
But
it's
welcome.
better than, let me just show everybody. Let me
Yeah,
see if I can do it. The
do it.
Count Chocula.
Oh yeah, with the chair.
I can't get the chair to do it now, of course.
I know,
But
because
yeah,
you're blurred. But
Darren
it was
Darren bullies me.
amazing.
That's the main thing. Yeah.
And welcome to Shaken and Disturbed. I feel like that's the perfect intro. This week's case is
Oh boy.
definitely different
Yeah, it is
than we've
different.
covered.
It's a little bit, let me just say this. It
Yeah.
has to do with surgeries that go awry. As you might see from
Mhm.
the title, which we haven't landed on just yet as we record this, but I'm sure it will be alluding to things. You know, if you're not into
We can call it the
botched
surgeries.
surgeries,
Surgery's gone awry. Yeah.
something like that, right? That's what's up. And I do realize that some people have a hard time with that. So we thought we would mention that at the top of the show so you don't, feel
Excuse me.
too disturbed, for lack of a better word.
Ah, yes.
Yes,
But
yeah.
yeah, just given that warning up top, but honestly, this is a
Yeah,
true crime case.
it
Anyone,
is.
like be prepared for that. That's all I'm going to say. It's just a little bit different. That's
Be
it.
prepared for that. There you
Be
go.
prepared for that. Let's go
Let's
ahead. Go ahead,
let's
Johnny boy.
get
You
right
kick it
into it.
off.
That's right. So okay, Dr. John Ronald Brown. He was born in 1922. Oh, here's another John causing chaos, guys.
Uh, Ronald is like, it's like
Yeah.
John Ronald is tough, is a tough.
That's a tough one, right?
My
Yeah.
face goes there. John Ronald.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're on
Okay.
face,
Anyway, sorry.
if you're on YouTube, check out
Don't
Darren's
just
face.
unsubscribe
Can
immediately
I,
from
by the way,
this.
can I screenshot that and use it as the
No.
thumbnail?
Not that one this week, buddy.
I was
Not
just
that
gonna
one this week.
say, Darren never has any argument with anything that I ever send to her because she knows she looks good. That was the one where she was like, "Nope, can't
Darren
do that one."
Goldberg reached out to me once when I like Instagrammed it. And he was like, by the way, do you know that this is the thumbnail shot? And I was like, uh-huh.
Oh, were you okay with it? Which one
He was
was
like,
it?
is John trying to sabotage you? And I was like,
Oh,
every day. No, he didn't say that. He
oh
didn't
my.
say
Oh,
that.
okay.
But I
But
kept
what
up that
was it? I'm so
narrative.
curious now.
Something where I looked absurd, in some sort of way.
Well, let me say this, and I
Yeah.
don't mean to break this off right in the very first
Sentence.
detail of
We
of
didn't even get
today's
to
show.
anything. We don't even know when he's
We
born.
haven't gotten to anything. That's right. But the reality is, the more dramatic and weird looking those thumbnails are, the better they do on YouTube, because that's how YouTube has taught us to our best practices for getting people to watch YouTube.
Sacrifice for my work.
So
So
let's see what the thumbnail is, by
we'll
Sunday,
see.
Darren. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll
We'll
see.
see.
We'll see.
Anyway,
Anyway.
John Ronald Brown was born in 1922. He was raised Mormon. And by 1940, John graduated high school at the age of 16, actually.
Wow.
He was
Like
actually
my
drafted.
dad.
Oh, really? Wow, I didn't know that
Yeah.
about your dad. He was drafted into the army and scored extremely high on all of his entrance exams. As such, the army sent him to medical school where he studied to become a doctor like his father. Now, remember, 1940, World War II is on the brink. There's a lot going on in terms of
On
the
the brink. Yeah.
military, especially in the United States. But in 1947, he earned his medical degree from the Utah School of Medicine and spent nearly 20 years working as a general practitioner in San Francisco and Los Angeles before deciding to go back to school to become a cosmetic surgeon. Now,
Hmm.
though John passed all of his written exams with flying colors, he actually failed the oral part of the exam and was actually not granted a license to become a surgeon. So this is a really important detail to today's story. So he passed all of his exams, things were moving, but he wasn't licensed to become a surgeon. He knew how to be a surgeon. He just simply wasn't licensed to be one. As I mentioned,
Which,
yeah.
in theory, better to know it than necessarily be licensed. But yes, it's important to know that he wasn't fully equipped.
That's right. And however, this wasn't enough of a deterrent for John, who actually was determined to find a way to practice surgery. He seemed to have some sort of passion for it. Well, many of John's patients in those days were gay, lesbian, and transgender. And in the late 60s, being a member of the LGBT community was, of course, much more stigmatized throughout the US than it is in many parts of the country today.
Mhm.
We'll get into more of those details as we go on. But while other doctors were turning away transgender patients who were looking to receive gender affirmation surgery, Dr. Brown's medical practice began to gain notoriety actually amongst the trans community for being a place where they could seek the help that they were looking for. And people actually began referring to it as, quote, the house of dreams.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like one of those things. It's tragic in a lot of ways because today it's still not exactly easy. We'll get to some of those details about today later in the episode, but especially back then in the late 60s, I mean, it was honestly kind of experimental in a lot of ways. The first gender affirmation surgeries took place in Berlin actually in 1931 and were performed on Lily Elby. I'm hoping I'm saying that right, who was a Danish artist who was assigned male at birth. Lily underwent a series of 5 experimental surgeries, tragically passing away from medical complications shortly after the 5th surgery. So here's what I'm saying, just 30 years prior to this, they were still undergoing the very first surgeries for transgender
And
people.
nothing's perfect, I mean, obviously this is still sort of new or and certainly in the news a
Yeah,
lot more than it had ever had been, for better or for worse. So I think it's only
right.
going to get better. But yeah, I mean, I think when you start messing with your
Yeah,
genitals in any sort of way,
yeah,
certainly hormones,
right.
you can't really guarantee how that's going to
Yeah,
make you act or be, or if you're going to have the same sensation there that you would before. Cause obviously it's surgery. That
right,
doesn't mean that you shouldn't get it. I'm just saying that it's
right.
obviously not perfect. Like
Yeah,
there's
it's a
going to
sensitive
probably be
part
something. Yeah.
of the body with lots of nerve endings, for lack of a better word there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so
That's how I said it. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Yeah. So affirmation surgeries slowly became available across Europe over the course of the next several decades, although, they were still very highly experimental.
It wasn't until 1966 actually that Johns Hopkins University opened their gender identity clinic, which is really progressive,
I
and
agree. Yeah.
for that time, and became the first academic institution to provide this surgery and teach new doctors how to administer it to patients safely. So it's pretty great. And Johns Hopkins is obviously known for its medical
Oh,
in,
yeah,
in
for
every
sure.
sort of way. So, despite his lack of a license to practice surgery, John began developing experimental methods of affirmation surgery. John
Hmm.
even presented the technique at a medical conference in 1973, where it impressed and earned him the respect of many successful and highly respected surgeons. I mean, so far, the way that we're presenting this, it's like he obviously is capable, right? Like a
Right.
licensing is just really a paper that says that you're qualified to do this. Again, I'd rather have someone definitely be qualified to do it rather than be necessarily
Of
licensed to do
course.
it.
Yeah.
But so we're sort of like hanging it all on the balance, but of just like being licensed. But in theory, and I'm not saying where this is going, but I obviously this is a true crime story. In theory, I this isn't necessarily like an Elizabeth Holmes, like I'm presenting you a surgery that there's no way there can work. He's presenting it in front of other respected surgeons.
It's true.
Just saying. Just
It also makes me wonder if these other surgeons who are, applauding him are aware that he is not licensed, because it's like, well, should you be doing all that? Because it does set a
right.
weird precedence if people who don't have the license are still out there doing these experimental surgeries and potentially risking the lives because they're not following the protocols, et
But
cetera, you
in
know?
but in theory, just go with me. I'm not saying this is what happens, but in
Yeah, yeah, I
theory,
agree with you.
if
Yeah.
John presents it, but he's not being licensed,
Mhm.
is separate of whether or not that is an effective or good surgery or
Yeah,
not.
I agree
Considering
for sure.
okay, yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say is like I don't it's unclear at this point what anyone thinks, only because he's presenting it in front of highly respected surgeons. Like
And by the
there's
way, sorry to
he's not in
interrupt
some
you.
dark closet,
Yes.
using rusty tools. That's all I'm saying.
Not yet. But I
Well,
will
yeah,
say
well,
this.
that's not what I'm saying yet.
No,
Yet,
I know,
yet.
but every country, I've learned this too, and I didn't know this until I became friends with doctors. Every country has a different kind of medical board and medical licensing board. And like for example, I have a friend of mine that I played tennis with a lot in New York City who was a doctor in Australia, but he would never in a million years be able to pass a board exam here in the United States. So like he became a professor and was like, a med school professor. And there are different, um, professions that you can get in, but like apparently the United States it's really hard to become a doctor here. And so maybe that's, to your point, he may be qualified in other countries,
Right.
which we might get to as
In
well. But
Exactly. He
yeah,
might have qualified in, no, not to this country, but he might have qualified in Turkey where he
sure.
wouldn't have qualified in the United States.
Yeah, you
All
hear about
fair.
a lot of people going to Turkey for things. So that's a good example there.
Well, a Real Housewife of New Jersey, even though her husband is a plastic surgeon, went to Turkey to get a nose job because she found him on Instagram. So I know what I'm talking about,
Interesting.
John.
Okay, I love the little Bravo. We
Excuse
should
me,
do a
should I say
Bravo
Dr. Brown?
Dr. Brown. We should do a little Bravo thing every single episode. Like, what's the Bravo connection? I like
Yeah,
the
maybe
way you made
we
that.
could great. I'm sure Bravo's gonna be very happy with me
Yeah,
connecting
I'm sure
this with
they'll
true
love
crime.
this.
Like, okay, you see, this rape of this girl is like this episode of,
Oh,
you
yes.
know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
we'll see
guys.
what we can. But anyway,
Right.
Dr. Brown saw thousands of patients, many of whom had extremely positive experiences and had nothing but good things to say about him. That's important. While most physicians required patients to undergo long, costly psychological evaluations, hormone therapy, spend years living as a woman or man before
Hmm.
they would help them surgically transition, again, at great cost, sometimes upwards of at
Yeah.
least $20,000, if not more, depending on what you want to do. A visit with Dr. Brown was much quicker and more cost effective. So if we just take those statements as they are, he's just playing the market. He
Yeah,
is
it's
doing
true.
something that he likes. He's playing the market. He's being competitive in the market. However, despite his successes, performing what essentially amounted to back alley surgeries came with numerous dangers. There's a reason he's probably
Yeah.
costing, he's cheaper and
Yeah.
quicker. For one thing, John had no access to any of the resources that came with working in a hospital, instead, performing surgeries dun, 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 in his own private office. Not
Yeah.
a garage with rusty tools, though.
Well,
Uh, Private office. Well, he eventually, though, turns his garage into an operating room where he
yeah.
performed procedures on patients. So started
Yeah.
out great, not looking good. Although technically, I mean, he's not
You really are
forcing anyone.
defending this guy. You really like that he's doing these back
Well,
alley
I think it's
surgeries.
important to sort of, I think there's probably a lot of that going on right now.
Oh, I
Maybe
agree. I agree with
states
you.
that can't do this. And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to defend the people that are trying to do the right thing
Yeah.
because to some extent, right? Like so far, what we know, he hasn't forced anyone into this situation.
No, definitely
He's
not.
not
No.
recruiting patients or something into there. So I
No.
just want to keep that in mind in
Yeah,
terms
that
of
is a
just
good point. Yeah.
reality and stuff. But yes, obviously, there's a true crime story. I'm not defending this fucking asshole, but I
I know, I'm
am
just teasing
defending
you.
if human beings were. But
Yeah, 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 yeah.
another issue, obviously, that arose over time, despite the obvious ones, was that patients who visited Dr. Brown had no access to pre or post surgical care beyond John himself, which
Mm,
is crucial, at least
yeah.
I imagine, for
Yeah.
transgender people. So, I mean, literally,
Yeah.
even if you're getting any type of surgery, you want pre and a big surgery, you need pre and surgical care. Obviously, if you're
Yeah.
doing something with highly sensitive areas, again,
Right.
mixed with hormones, you certainly need that.
And I just keep thinking, listen, I have a few trans friends and one of whom I'm very close with who's shared a lot of his transitional like issues, for lack of a better word there. And what just keeps coming to mind as we get through this episode is like it's just so sad that like this is what it takes for trans people to feel like themselves. They have to go through, whether it is just lack of funding and resources or, just the desperate need to feel like yourself. It's just this is what is so challenging about the trans issues of today
Yeah.
even. This is the six when yeah, still the 60s, and you can see it's decades long, and so hopefully and we'll get to the current day situation later in the episode, but you can get a snapshot at least of the challenges that trans people face just trying to be themselves and feel like themselves in the body that they were given. So anyway, as John performed more and more surgeries, he seemed to become fixated on perfecting his technique, the one that he was applauded for, rather than providing holistic care to his patients. One of John's earlier patients, a trans woman named Elizabeth, was initially very satisfied with her affirmation surgery until she was about a year post op and then began having very serious complications.
Mm.
Dr. Brown, of course, provided no follow up care and left her to seek medical help for her problem elsewhere. By practicing without a license to operate, John was not beholden to any of those regulations that are put in place to keep patients safe. So that is the downside of this. Yes, he knows how to do it, but there's a system in place that is just, pre, during, and post operation. That's
Right. He
just
only
as
knows how to
important.
do one of the components, or at least that's the
Exactly.
component he knows how to do well. Yeah.
Exactly. That's a great way to put that. Another patient arrived at Dr. Brown's office believing that their visit to be a pre surgical checkup was meant to be just a pre surgical checkup, but awoke hours later to find that the doctor had anesthetized them and
Oh,
operated on the spot. So this was meant to just be like, hey, let's, this is a checkup. And then they are, anesthetized and then wake up with gender affirmation surgery. That's crazy, actually. A
wow.
growing number of these horror stories began to stem from this garage practice. Some patients went in for surgery expecting vaginoplasties, but simply had their genitals removed. Now we're getting into the like, okay, what is your motive here, guy? Others were left with unsterile surgical sites on their bodies that
Mm,
became infected and left the patients needing to use a colostomy bags for the rest of their life.
oof.
So we're really getting into, I'm starting to think that maybe he actually maybe is losing his own skills and like mind to some degree because things seem to be going well in the beginning and now there's lots of errors and botching going on here.
Right. I mean, kind of the only rationale I could see it would be if he's trying to gain the trust of the community so that way he could
Right.
potentially get more victims who are
Right.
volunteering to go see him so he doesn't have to get it
Right.
out. But it also could be maybe it has nothing to do with something necessarily nefarious, but he's
Yeah,
lost his
no,
mind or he doesn't realize or he
that's what I
doesn't
mean.
have the
Yeah.
education. So, yeah, there's like a number of different theories that are going on, but it is odd that it started out decently well in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, other
Trying to do
doctors applauding him.
something
Yeah.
good. Yeah, exactly.
So, though Dr. Brown specialized in genital surgery, he offered a number of other gender affirmation cosmetic procedures as well. One patient actually recounted, quote, he'd shoot silicone anywhere you wanted it. For $200, he'd do breast surgery. For $500, he'd do cheeks, breasts, and hips. After
Eeks.
injections, I
Wow.
know. After injections, you had to lie flat on your back for 3 days so the silicone wouldn't go anywhere. He plugged holes with crazy glue. End
What the
quote.
fuck?
Call me crazy with a K, but I don't know that
Call you
crazy
crazy
glue
glue.
is gonna, yeah, call me crazy glue, but I don't know if crazy glue is the right. I don't think that's board certified, let's put it that way.
I don't
Well,
think so.
despite the fact that many of his patients were happy with their care, an extremely concerning number were harmed and abandoned by the doctor, and many filed complaints against him with the medical board. So,
I
very
bet.
uns yeah, I would imagine that they
I
would.
mean,
So,
crazy glue is a little. I see if they use crazy glue to stop something when you're in like a crisis or something, but it's
yeah.
not something that you should have like a doctor use because they should have
No.
preparatory
No.
materials. Well, in 1977, Dr. Brown's license was revoked by the California State Medical Board for gross negligence, specifically for performing gender affirmation surgery as an outpatient procedure in an office that was not equipped for surgery. So not only is he letting these people go, it ain't the place that he's at is not right. And as a
Right.
reminder, his office was a garage, so that does make sense.
Right, exactly.
Instead of reevaluating his practice, Dr. Brown decided to begin practicing medicine in Mexico. He moved south to San Diego, about 10 minutes from the Mexican border, 20 minutes, give or take, so that he could continue operating without a license.
So he would like cross the border essentially
Right,
and
every
do his
day
work
and do
there.
that. Again, I'm not unsure that that doesn't happen today,
No, I'm
especially,
sure it
like,
does. Yeah.
so obviously not all of them people, not all of them are murderers, which is also what I'm trying to distinguish here. But
Right.
um, because he was located so close to the border, and I'm not even saying murder, I'm just saying something sussy. Because he was
Yeah.
located so close to the border, it was fairly easy, though highly inadvisable for Americans to enter Mexico, receive his medical services, then return home same day.
Right.
However, John seemed to have no way of funding his new medical business venture, and his new practice stayed small until 1982 when he met Pat Baxter. Pat was another resident of San Diego who ran a surgical practice in Mexico. He had the funds to expand his practice and was looking for more doctors to join in. Pat seemed not to mind John's unethical way of treating patients and suggested the two of them pool resources and begin a partnership. The new practice simply thrived, and thousands of people traveled across the border for an inexpensive surgery.
Yeah. It's amazing to think that thousands of people are looking for that
But
kind of
when you're,
surgery.
listen, when you're desperate, I
That's what I
mean,
mean. Yeah.
people joke about, and this not to be crass, right? But I'm just using this sort of an egregious example of like, there's a reason the coat hanger is the
Yeah.
symbol for getting an abortion.
Yeah.
You know, it's not meant to be funny. It's meant to say like,
Right.
I will use a coat hanger if I have to,
If
which is just
I'm, yeah,
gruesome
totally.
if I must. And so
Yeah.
I not to necessarily equate the two,
No, but
but
I
I
see
think
what you're
when you're in
saying.
desperate situation,
Yes.
especially when you want to be yourself, I
Right.
don't think you're thinking of it being, I'm going to Mexico or I'm in a garage, or I think you're
Right.
like, I want this off of me or in me or out of me or whatever the fuck
And
now.
and it's life altering, you know, like that's how important that type of stuff is. So it is I think that is a good comparison, as tragic as that can be for people. While John continued to hone his gender affirmation surgical techniques, also offering his patients breast implants, facelifts, liposuction, silicone injections, and even penile implants. It wasn't, excuse me, it wasn't long before tales of his sensational new operation made their way to the United States again. In January of 1986, when I was born,
Hmm.
Penthouse Forum ran
Hmm.
an article. For those who don't know, Penthouse was like the magazine, like similar to like Playboy back in the day.
And this
Before,
article came out when John was born, just saying. No
so but there's a
maybe no
connection.
relation.
Yeah, there's
Maybe
a
no
connection.
relation.
But they Penthouse Forum actually ran an article titled, quote, "The Incredible Dick Doctor," end quote, which recounted an unsettling incident that took place during a penile surgery. Now, as we were doing this research,
Yeah.
Megan did this research. Shout out to Megan. I was skimming through and I was like, I kind of remembered this situation. So get ready. This is a little bit unsettling.
Hmm.
Apparently, Dr. Brown actually accidentally made an incision into the patient's penile shaft, which caused blood
Oh.
to spatter everywhere, to which the doctor stated, quote, "I made a boo-boo." Yeah, yeah,
In
you
that accent,
did.
I
I
mommy
made a
made boo
boo-boo.
boo.
I'm a baby doing penile implants. Soon after, Darren's laughing. It's not funny, actually. It's really horrific.
I'm
Um,
laughing. To
I
be
know you're
fair,
laughing at
everyone, I'm
my
laughing
voice.
at
Yeah.
John. I'm just laughing at John,
No, I know.
not with John.
I shouldn't
At
make
John.
yeah, I shouldn't make jokes. But soon after, the television show Inside Edition, which I think we all know and remember, opened an investigation into Dr. Brown's practice and patient care. The team and the producers traveled down to Mexico to visit his office. And this is the part that I'm remembering. During the visit, the crew captured footage of a patient waking up during a scalp flap surgery, which
A
I don't even know what
scalp
that
flap. I don't
is.
want to know what a scalp flap
It
surgery
sounds
is.
very Hannibal Lecter. I don't know. I just don't like the way that sounds. I don't like the word flip flop. So scalp flap really is just throwing me. It was carried out to give the patient a more feminine hairline. And during the
There's
procedure,
feminine hairlines.
well, yeah, I mean, guys have certain.
Like,
Actually,
I
now
mean,
that
you
I'm
mean if
saying
you're
that, is
like
there a
balding? Like, I
difference?
understand if you're
Oh,
balding and women
maybe,
aren't
maybe.
necessarily balding, like they don't have the
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But
Well,
like right now, you and I both have a full head of hair. Like, what is
right.
different about our
I
hairline?
don't know. That's a good. I was like thinking there's a difference, and then as you asked that, I was like, wait, no, there must
But
not be. I don't know.
maybe, yeah,
There's
who knows?
something, whatever it
Yeah, there's
was.
right.
But during the procedure, the patient awoke from
Nope.
sedation and began moaning and screaming. And this was, by the way, I'm just to reinforce here, Inside Edition is capturing this. So though Dr. Brown assured the production crew that this was, quote, perfectly normal, the journalist broadcast the shocking footage on national television, prompting the start of a criminal investigation. The FBI, of course, got involved. It took John into custody, seized his assets, and although he had been performing the surgeries themselves in Mexico, he had actually been scheduling patients using a San Diego based phone number, which
Ooh.
gave law enforcement the jurisdiction to file charges against him. Now, we have done this show, we've done a version of the show, we've done podcasting and true crime for all these years. And I was surprised by this. I was like, oh, yeah, you can't be doing business with American phone lines. You know, this was one
Yep.
of those times where I was like, oh, my true crime acumen continues to grow because I just hadn't thought of something like that.
And it's also easy to kind of slip up at, like you could be registered
Yeah.
in, let's
Yeah,
say
for
Tijuana.
sure.
I'm just using an example. You could register in Tijuana, pay your taxes
Yeah.
wherever, you're a resident of, in theory. I guess some of those go to California, but yeah, I guess maybe using the phone number is going to be, yeah.
If part of your
That,
business is happening in the United
right.
States, there you go. Well, as you might expect, John was tried and sent to prison for 3 years. Again, this is just for the whole, medical, doing the
Malpractice.
wrong kind
Yeah,
of
right.
business type of thing. So John tried and was sent to prison for 3 years, serving only 18 months of his sentence.
And by the time John was released, Pat Baxter had severed ties and moved on, and Dr. Brown was left on his own. After his release from prison, John spent a year as a taxi driver before reopening his surgical practice in Tijuana in 1992. He opened a clinic called the New Woman Surgical Center. Wow, what a. I guess it's not for trans men.
Men? Maybe not. Yeah, it sounds like probably not.
He opened a clinic called the New Woman Surgical Center under the assumed name of Dr. Ralph Molina. The conditions of this office were markedly worse than his prior facilities, which I can't imagine because they were in a garage. Dr. Brown was known to eat and drink while performing
Ugh.
surgeries. And one would-be patient paid a visit to the center, but changed her mind, later stating, quote, the sewers overflowed once or twice a day,
Oh
saying, I
my
remember seeing him
God.
walking down the hallway eating raw weenies right out of the package. A fucking package of weenies, end
Of
quote. That's
weenies.
not even my own emphasis. That's
That's
a
not
direct
Daryn.
quote.
That's a quote that we have researched.
In his new office, running water was never a guarantee in the building, while surgeries took place
Ugh.
in a bedroom or an OBGYN chair. Um, is the bedroom
Yeah.
in an OBGYN chair better than an operating table in the
You want to think
garage?
it might be more cozy, but at the end of the day, neither situation is going to end in a good way.
I wouldn't trust a doctor who was eating a package of hot dog weenies.
Or anything, but
Like,
especially weenies.
no,
You
but like
know?
raw weenies? No. Cook the weenies.
Yeah, and yeah, cook the
A
weenies, grill the
fucking
weenies.
package of weenies.
I don't know. This is getting really disgusting
I
fast.
can't. Yes.
So on May 11th, 1998, the deceased body of 79-year-old Philip Bondi was discovered inside the room of a Holiday Inn in San Diego. Now, Philip had undergone a leg amputation very recently, and his
Whoa.
surgical site was gruesome and infected. Ugh, that's just so gross. The medical examiner determined that Philip had died of gangrene, a bacterial
Oh.
infection that causes tissue death brought on by a lack of blood flow in the area to the body and often seen after a surgical procedure.
Did you ever see Requiem for a Dream?
I don't think I have. No. Does
Not that
something
this
like
is
this
exact.
happen?
It's no. It's well, it's drug related. It's just
Oh,
like
okay.
overeating and drugs. But
Yeah.
anyway, they have a scene, and it's listen. It's an adult movie, but they have a scene where Jared
Yeah.
Leto just keeps stabbing the same place to have
Ugh.
heroin, and it's like all infected. And whenever I think about something like that, I
Ugh.
think about that scene from Requiem for
I
a
would
Dream.
too. That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Well, this hotel room where this body was found was horrific. Philip's wheelchair had been upended, his
Mm.
phone knocked off the nightstand, his sheets pulled off of the bed, and he had clearly tried and had failed to seek help before succumbing to the infection that ended his
Oof.
life. A friend informed authorities that Philip had been in a taxi accident during a recent trip to Mexico and his leg had needed to be removed as a result of his injuries. Now, San Diego
Hmm.
police contacted the Mexican authorities who had no record of Philip or a car accident like the one that he had described. Among Philip's possessions in his hotel room, though, investigators found two receipts, each for $5,000. One receipt was just for, quote, surgery. The other was for, quote, hospitalization. And both were signed by none other than John Brown. So, police brought Dr. Brown in. If he's even a doctor at this point, do we know? I don't know. He had his license, then he didn't have his license, then they revoked a license. Let's see where this plays out. But Dr. Brown, for lack of a better term, there and was brought in for questioning and immediately offered to make a statement. By the time they were through their first round of questioning, police had taken 29 pages of notes
Jesus.
and still had no idea actually why Philip's leg had been amputated. However, they were fairly sure that some sort of illegal activity had been involved and that
Yeah.
John Brown was placed under arrest and charged with involuntary manslaughter. I mean, he was clearly the person that did
I mean,
this.
Well, obviously, the case made the news and caught the attention
Yeah.
of a transgender author and activist named Dallas Denny. Great name. Dallas knew a number of people who had been operated on by Dr. Brown and had seen some of the awful conditions patients of Dr. Brown were left in.
Mm,
Dallas had spent years warning people of the doctor's surgical practices. And when she caught wind of the case and realized John was somehow connected to the mysterious amputation, Dallas contacted the San Diego prosecutor and explained something
smart.
called
I want to say this is
ap-
called
apene-
apotemnophilia. Yeah,
apotemnophilia.
there you go.
Apnotemnophilia, also known as BIID, so BID, which is body integrity identity disorder.
Yep.
And it's an extremely rare psychological condition where a person experiences a compulsion to amputate a healthy limb. I have heard of this before.
Have you?
Bid is sometimes a sexual fetish or linked to sexual arousal, but it's sometimes a non sexual psychological compulsion. I actually have heard of this before.
Mm,
And according to Dallas, Dr. Brown had been performing amputations on people with BID since the 70s.
wow.
Investigators learned that Philip had been in touch with Dr. Brown by a friend who also had BID. And
Mm.
Philip had visited John earlier in the week to have his leg removed and was happy with the procedure. And in theory, if everything is voluntary,
Yeah, no.
right?
Yeah.
Then no harm, no foul. Even if it's not the smartest idea, like I've said on the show many times, like I own my body. I should be
Yeah.
able to do with what I want with it. If I want to amputate my leg with a butter knife, I'm not
Oh,
recommending,
that just gave me
but
chills.
in theory, I own my body and I should
Right.
be able to do it.
It's true.
Now, Dr. Brown disposed of the leg in the Mexican desert. Obviously,
Horrible.
that's where all of them go. Then drove Philip to the Holiday Inn in San Diego, where he helped him learn to walk with crutches just before abandoning him kind of completely, casually,
Yeah.
later to die of infection
Right.
because,
Just whatever. Right.
the leg's chopped off, obviously.
Right. Well, once the DA was able to clearly see the full picture here of what had happened to Philip, they increased the charge against John to implied malice murder in the second degree. Now, this charge applies in cases where the defendant knows an act is dangerous to human life, but does it anyway. I mean, it kind of
Right.
counters what you were saying a little bit there, Darren, because it does sound like, this person came to him with a want and he followed through with it. Are there
Doesn't
ethical
have to be rational.
questions? But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, authorities searched Dr. Brown's home and office where they found hundreds of his possessions covered in blood. They found
Ugh.
used needles, dozens of empty tubes of crazy glue, Darren. Darren's making a
Oh,
face. And blood covered towels and sheets soaking in a bathtub full of bleach.
this is
This
obviously
is,
this is
yeah,
obviously terrible. When you're talking, it reminded me. Do you remember that show, I Want a Famous Face? On MTV,
vaguely.
maybe.
Yes,
And
vaguely.
you'd like go in and you'd be like,
Yes.
I want to look like Angelina Jolie. And
Britney
they'd get
Spears.
like, right.
Yes.
And in theory, right, there was always like complications. You're doing something to your face. Granted, maybe not life or death like amputation, but you're doing something
Yeah.
to your face that isn't
Yeah.
really probably advised. What's
Yeah.
the
What
implication
is
there? Is someone doing
right?
something wrong with plastic surgery when you give people size X breast implants and they're like have back issues? Like, I don't obviously this is more serious because it's amputation, but what is the line of
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get to be an idiot with my body, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there are laws too, that there is a line. Maybe there is a
Well, there is.
line
You can't
in
just
that way.
donate an organ, you can't
Good
just like
point.
sell your organ, excuse me, you can't just like sell your organ on the black market.
Yeah,
I
right,
can't
right,
just
right.
sell my
Good
kidney on the
point.
black market. So there is that, right?
That's a
But
good point. Yeah.
it's just interesting. Yeah.
Well, also within all of this really unsettling stuff, they also uncovered some very graphic videotapes of Dr. Brown performing experimental surgeries on patients who were essentially being used as guinea pigs.
Jesus.
John narrated his way through many of these videotapes as though they were meant to be used as teaching tools. However, he often had trouble pronouncing or even remembering the medical terminology that he was trying to
Yeah,
use.
this is the liver here. This is the liver. We got the split
The
any.
live. I was like, wait, what? We're going live on Facebook? No, the liver. Right, exactly. This kind of, this detail I think alludes to what I was saying earlier, which is like, was he slowly kind of in a cognitive decline? And like, you don't want your surgeon to be cognitively declining in any
Because
way.
in
So
theory, like minus the care, he's actually performing surgeries like
that are helping
that people
people.
would consider to be
Yeah.
almost heroic in
No,
theory.
I know.
Obviously, it's
That's true.
disgusting, but
Yeah.
aside all
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, the conditions depicted on these tapes were horrifically dirty. Surgical incisions were being held open using push pins. The surgical tools were dull and unclean, and the open wounds themselves were clearly not sanitized. So just,
Horrendous.
it's really horrendous. Exactly.
Well, at trial, all the men present were extremely uncomfortable, including the judge, who asked the prosecutor in earnest if he really needed to watch the tapes being shown as evidence. I would probably ask the same thing.
I think I
Maybe I
would
just
too.
take it for granted,
Yeah.
take it for as it is. Now, the prosecution had a surprisingly difficult time finding witnesses to testify against the
Mm.
doctor. Huh. Many of his patients were impossible to locate or contact, I bet, or wouldn't admit having the surgery.
Well,
Some
right.
were extremely wary of police, worried they would be in trouble for having the illegal surgery, let alone wanting to admit it.
Right.
Now, the defense tried to portray John as a well meaning doctor who had a passion for helping people that society had simply rejected. And in many ways, that was not entirely untrue.
And
In
by
their
the way,
closing,
were you his lawyer? It sounds like maybe you were the lawyer here.
maybe I need to practice a little bit, you know?
Maybe you do. Maybe you do.
In their closing arguments, remember, I was defending Ed Kemper.
I know. We got
Let
to
us
really
not
take
forget.
another look at you on this show, I think.
Let's not take,
Yeah.
hey, my name's not John, and I
Yeah,
wasn't
fair
born in
enough.
whatever.
Yeah.
Now, in their closing arguments, the defense stated, quote, no one else would deal with transsexuals. John Brown said, quote, I'll deal with them. Did he do this for money? No. He did it because he cared. And if you don't believe that, then you have my permission, as if you needed it, to find him guilty of murder, end quote.
Mm,
Now, the jury deliberated for only one day before indeed finding Dr. Brown guilty of second degree murder, and he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison in 1998. John appealed his conviction a number of times, but each attempt was denied. In 2010, not too long ago, Dr. Brown developed a case of pneumonia that rejected antibiotic treatment, and he passed away at the age of 87.
yeah. And so we also want to mention, today modern medical standards and protocols for transgender care have been established, guided by extensive research and best practices, and this has led to better preoperative assessments and postoperative care and overall patient outcomes. Of course, there's still a lot that needs to happen for full transgender equality. Thankfully, today there are also more robust legal protections for transgender individuals, including anti-discrimination laws and policies that ensure access to gender affirming healthcare. These legal safeguards have been instrumental in making transgender medical practices more accessible and safer. I mean, that's really the gist of all
Yeah,
of this is like however, I might want to be like really helpful to somebody you know, and perform, ear removal surgery, but am I approved to do that and know how to make everything healthy and happy afterwards? No. So, there are establishments like this and regulations that I think are a big part of this. Reputable medical organizations such as the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, also known as WPATH, have developed comprehensive guidelines and standards for care for transgender health. These guidelines have been widely adopted, promoting safer and more consistent medical practices for transgender individuals. So,
yeah,
tragically, we hope that this doesn't happen and ever again. But to your point earlier, Darren, I do think that, people don't always want to go through, like to your point about transgender people, I think that you were kind of pointing to a second ago. Some transgender people don't want the world to know that they're going through that type of stuff. It is
right.
an identity thing. So we just hope everyone is doing it as safely as possible and looking out for people like Dr. Brown. That would be terrible.
Yes, absolutely. Very interesting case.
Yeah.
A sort of as I argued, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit of a different
Yeah.
type of true crime
I agree.
story. But
Yeah.
let's get into some listener shout outs, please.
Yeah, I wanted to give a special shout out to my longtime friend and longtime listener of the show, actually. Her name is Amanda. She lives in Morgantown. We got dinner the other night and we were talking about the show and she was referencing things, Darren, like I forgot about. You know me, I kind of forget everything
Yeah,
about the
me
show.
too.
And I was like, wow, she is such a good friend and like really seems to love the show. She loves you, Darren. And it just
Oh, I
really
love her.
re-energized me. And so yeah, thank you for being such a great friend, Amanda. And I hope you enjoyed your pierogies that we
Oh,
had.
I love a pierogi. Oh,
Me
I love
too.
it. Hi, Amanda. Well, Krista in our Facebook group shared a heartwarming story about her new kitty, posting a
Yes.
pic saying, quote, I keep forgetting to show mom and dad their new grand radish. Don't be mad at me, dad. Sad face. Everyone meet Sprout. She is
Yeah.
3.9 pounds now, and we saved her from getting eaten by a hawk outside our house.
Oh my
She was
God.
abandoned by her mom. She can't sit
Oh,
out of, I hope that doesn't affect her psychologically growing up.
I
She can't
know.
see out of her left eye and doesn't have full control of her bladder. But other than that, she loves to attack her siblings' tails and bite her human toes. And I love her.
Oh,
Just so I
it's
want you
such
to
a
know, I
cute
just love
picture.
Sprout. I love her with the little eyes.
I also love the name Sprout. That's such a
It's
cute
so
name for a
cute.
kitty.
I'm
Yeah, check it.
swooning.
And thank you, Krista, for that. Krista's also been a longtime fan. Krista, I'm looking at one of the gifts that you sent to us right now, in fact, next to my desk. So thank you,
Yes, I have it
Krista.
right here.
Give Sprout our little kisses and hugs from mom and
Yeah.
dad. You know, we
My
love
little
you
tummy
guys.
rubs with the
Yeah.
toe beans. Yeah.
By the way, guys, please sign up for our Patreon. We are starting to share some teases of upcoming episodes there for anyone or everyone at all tiers. If you want to see a quick little, Easter egg, for example, we copied and pasted part of today's episode research onto Patreon for everyone to just, get a tease about how gruesome it was going to be. So you can check out things like that. You can get early access to our episodes before anyone else. You'll basically get the inside scoop of what's going on with our show before anyone else. Daryn, you
And
have
guess
some
what? You
other?
can sign
Yeah,
up for as little as $5 a month or even cheaper if you sign up annually. Love a deal.
love a good deal. Yes, the annual sign up really is the best deal if you guys
It
want to do that.
is.
And let me say this. We won't get into it just yet, but we are working on something very exciting that Daryn and I were
Mm,
just talking about
just talking about it.
before the start of the show. And you guys on Patreon on all levels, all tiers, are going to be the first to know about it. And this is one of those things that you might want to actually get in on early. I'll just say that. Let's just say Halloween's coming up. That's
There's
as
some
much as I think we
things.
should say, right, Daryn? That
I
should be it.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. We love you guys. And of course, don't forget to take your vitamins.
And check your pits, especially if you have a penis, and don't eat a fucking package of weenies.
That's a great sign off. Don't, especially if you're doing
Mm.
surgery. You
Don't be
don't want to
eating
be
package of
doing
weenies
no
near the sewer at your
near
doctor's
the
office.
sewer.
Highly, I don't
Exactly.
recommend that. I don't recommend.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.